Hi, and welcome back to Learn How to Write Online. Today we're going to talk about something very serious, learning how to not be taken advantage of. All right? Now, there are people out there who will scam you out of your money, who will ask you to do work that you don't know how to do, or who will not pay you on time, not pay you what you're worth. So we're going to talk about how to avoid all that today. All right? First of all, look for the red flags. You want to look for instances where they are changing the payment date, they are changing the payment terms. Sometimes you can spot a scammer before you even accept work from them. So if you're using sites like Freelancer or something, look for client reviews. All right, if there are no client reviews and no one has said that this client has paid them, that should be a red flag. Yes, they could be coming there for the first time and maybe just haven't gotten anyone to do any work for them yet and haven't had the opportunity to pay anyone. But you need to be careful, especially first starting out, because you don't know who you're dealing with. You don't know whether they're going to pay you or not. So look for red flags, okay? The client reviews are your best method to prevent being taken advantage of right off the bat. So look at those if there are any, all right? You also want to look at the terms that they agree to. Will they pay you up front at all? Okay, you may not expect them to pay you the entire amount up front, but if they don't want to pay you for the first article up front, that should be a red flag. If they don't want to pay you after the work is done right away, or they don't want to pay you every week, that should be a red flag. All right, if they don't ask for your payment information, okay, if they're not asking for your PayPal or Payoneer, whatever you're using, then they probably have no intention of paying you. It's possible they just forgot, but look for that, okay, because that is another sign that they're not going to pay you and they have no interest in paying you, okay? If they want to give you a payment agreement, read through it. Make sure it's in, decent English, because if it's very vague, if it's hard to understand, if it's not written well, then they can refer back to that and say, no, 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 this is what it really means. And they can try to get more work out of you and change the payment date and change all these terms based on that initial document. So if there is an initial agreement document, sometimes there will be, read it over carefully. If you have any questions, don't do work about it until you get things sorted out with the client. All right, the best way to avoid getting taken advantage of is to communicate with your client. Find out what they want, make sure they know what you want and what you expect, and set up payment terms, set up payment amount and payment dates, and you want to set up timelines for everything so that they know when to expect the work, okay? If they are very demanding, if they are very rude to you, and this is the first time you've worked for them and you've not really done anything seriously wrong, then watch for that, because that's a tactic that scammers will use. They'll try to make you feel bad, and so you feel guilted into doing more work for them and not getting paid right away. And they'll point out these little nitpicky problems and get all serious about it and make it and just blow it up into something big. And that's a scammer tactic. They guilt you, and you get easily taken advantage of that way. So watch for that. Okay, if they start getting aggressive toward you and you don't know why they're being aggressive, consider that they may be trying to steal work from you without paying you. Okay, so your most common red flags you're going to see are that they move back the payment date. You've agreed to be paid within a week. You do the work. The week has come. You say, where's my payment? They say, no, no, no. We want you to wait another week to get paid because of this and because of that. All right? Be really careful about that. I would suggest, if this is your first time working for them, they've never paid you before, don't do any more work until they pay you for the initial work at the agreed upon date, okay? And at that point, you should consider charging a late fee. Be open with your communication. Tell them, I expected to be paid by this time, and you give them a couple days past that. But then if they're being aggressive, if they're being argumentative, if they're not paying you right away, then you need to talk about the late fee and give them a couple days to pay the late fee. Do not bring up the late fee and expect it to be paid on the same day. You got to give them a couple days, because a late fee, many clients will see that as an attack on them. All right, especially if you didn't establish late fees before you start the work. All right, it probably won't even be something that crosses your mind until you start running into payment problems. So you want to be careful about how you present the late fee and how much you charge. My standard late fee is, if the payment is running late, I charge $10 as a flat rate. If the work is less than $10 itself, like it's just a small job, I won't even worry about the late fee. I'll probably just let it go because it's not a big deal. But anything $20 or more, I would consider that $10 late fee. And that may seem severe for smaller work, and you may want to make a smaller late fee, but just having a standard late fee is really helpful, I think. And your clients will share that with each other. Hey, they charge this for late fee. You know about that, you know. And when they recommend you to other people, and other people ask your clients about late fees, they can tell them you have that standard rate. It clears up any confusion about how much you're charging for things and the fairness and all that if you just have that standard flat late fee. And that's the only late fee I've ever charged, is a $10 late fee. I don't add on to that and, you know, add percentage and interest and all that. I don't find that's necessary. I don't think that's a very ethical way to handle things. I think just having a standard late fee just as a principle is good. All right. It's not that you're trying to get more money out of them, and you never want to present the late fee as a way to squeeze money out of your clients. That's why you give them that few days notice before you actually apply the late fee. All right, and if you're using PayPal or something like that, you can send an invoice with the late fee, and that helps up the seriousness of the situation and show them that you definitely want that late fee before you're going to accept the work as paid for. Okay, but be really careful about how you present the late fee, how you communicate it, and just keep your terms consistent, keep your rates consistent. All right, don't just start charging them for all sorts of things. You want to just keep the late fee as a principle. Okay, so I would suggest just staying with that flat rate, give them a little leeway, you know, and be understanding. If it's someone you have worked for a while, and you know, they explain to you, well, I had a family problem, I had to go to the hospital, whatever. Try to be understanding. Yes, some people will just make up that story because they forgot to pay you, or they didn't have the funds set in place to pay you properly and on time, but try to be understanding with your recurring clients. Otherwise, they might not be your recurring clients anymore. Okay, I would say be stricter and sterner with the new clients in the late fee to kind of set those boundaries than you are with your recurring clients. All right, and many times I will let my recurring clients get away with paying me a couple weeks late, just because I know they do pay me, and it's kind of a sign of good faith. And instead of sending them a late fee reminder, I'll just send them a payment reminder. I'll say something like, hey, when can I expect payment? Hey, I haven't heard from you in a while, and I'm wondering if everything's okay. You can phrase it like that, so it doesn't seem like you're trying to squeeze money out of them, and it's not all about the money, okay? Because you want to keep that relationship strong and friendly, okay? So be really careful with the late fee. People will take that personally many times. Some people will refuse to pay a late fee. That may be their principle. They never pay a late fee. And that could just be because they're cheap. That just could be because that's the way they are. And you have to deal with that. You'll have to decide whether you want to still do work for that person or not. And you may have to change the way you do work with them. You may have to say, well, I want all my payment up front then, if there's going to be a problem with payment. I've seen a history of payment problems in the past from you, and so I would like to be paid up front. I would like to know exactly when you will pay me, and if that doesn't happen, I can't do any more work for you, that sort of thing. All right, you just have to know how to work with your clients, and you'll understand them better the more you work with them. All right. As far as people just trying to pay you, to get work from you and not pay you, you don't have a lot of recourse, especially if they're in a different country than you, and a lot of your clients probably will be in a different country. You may not have much legal recourse. You can say things like, I'm going to have my lawyer contact you and things like that, whether it's true or not, but it may or may not work. So be careful about threats and all that, because that can come back to bite you. Sometimes you're just not going to get paid because people are crappy, and that's how it goes. So you just got to look for those red flags, and if they don't pay you, you may not be able to do very much about it, okay? But you need to have a standard set in place. If they don't pay you on time, especially if this is a new client, don't do any more work for them. They may want to change the payment dates, they may want to change the payment terms, and while you're sorting all that out, stop work for them. Because if they're giving you trouble to make the initial payment, they're going to give you trouble to make the next payment and the next one. So there's no point in you doing more work for them. Just shift your workload over to something else, start looking for work, and while you sort things out with them, and don't do any more work for them if they're not paying you. All right, and communicate that with them. Say, I'm not going to do any more work with you until you pay me for the work I've already done. When you are very forward with your communication, very clear with your communication like that, it can help to speed things along and get the payment processed. All right, so your communication is key in all this, in avoiding scammers, in avoiding being taken advantage of, and the other things we're going to talk about here in part of this lesson. Just be really clear with your communication. All right, be friendly as much as possible, but know when to be stern and when to be strict, and to say, I need to be firm on this, and I can't move forward until this is taken care of. Okay, so another thing you need to watch for is people who aren't paying you what you're worth, and they're trying to lowball you all the time, and they want to go lower than your rates. You may want to accept that if they're giving you a big project, or maybe if the work is really, really easy, like it's basically just kind of simple rewriting, or you're not even rewriting a whole document, you're just kind of editing some stuff. You know, you may want to go for a lower rate. And the larger projects, sometimes I will take a lower rate many times because I needed the work, or just because it's a sign of good faith and it makes the client happy and you can afford to do so. So you want to look at all those factors and consider that it's okay sometimes to take a lower rate if it's justified, okay? And especially if you need the work. You may want to be, you may even want to offer lower rates for people yourself. I don't think I've ever done that, but that may be able to help you get more work, okay? If you are not comfortable with the work someone wants you to do, it's okay to say no. Remember that you're the boss. You set your schedule, you set your timetable, you set your rates, you decide what work you're going to do. Now, once again, keep your communication open and friendly. Make sure they understand your reasoning why, so you don't keep running into this situation where they're asking you to do something you're not comfortable with or you can't handle. And if you just keep your communication clear on that, it won't be a recurring problem. Okay, so here's an example. Sometimes a client will ask me to write on electronic cigarettes and just kind of promote this sort of thing. And I may have a problem with the health risks of it, and I may not like the idea of promoting it and telling people they ought to use it as an alternative to cigarettes or something. And so I may say, no, I'm not going to write on e-cigarettes for you. I don't feel comfortable writing on this topic. Whatever it is, and you may have your own pet peeves and things that you don't feel comfortable with. Sometimes people ask me to write on escort services, and I tell them no every time, and I tell them I won't write on this topic or at all. Okay, so you should be very clear and upfront, but once again, be friendly. Say, I'll be happy to do other work for you, but not this. Okay, so just make it very clear to them, and if you do that, you won't keep getting work from them on the same topic usually, unless they're just forgetful. Just be friendly with them though. And it's okay to say no, and sometimes you'll feel you want to take on the work because you need the work, and then you feel bad about it afterwards. It's better to just say no, all right? So you don't have regrets about having written it. And then you're going looking online for how you can take it down and all that, all right? So keep that in mind. Remember, it's okay to say no, all right? And this applies to stuff that you feel is technically beyond you, that's too technical for you. Maybe they want you to write on a subject that you have no experience in, or that when you do the research for it, you still don't understand it. I was asked one time to do a book on net code and on binary math, and I didn't understand it. And I told the client up front, I don't understand this at all. This is kind of above my experience level. It's not something I have any experience with, and I'd have to do a lot of research in order to be able to write you a decent book. And I don't want to give you poor quality writing. And he says, I understand. I'm going to set you up with some free online courses. I'm going to pay you for your time to go through those courses. And he took care of everything because we had clear communication, and I was actually able to charge a higher rate as well for all of that. And the book turned out okay because I had the resources I needed. But sometimes you'll just have to say, no, I can't do this. I don't know anything about it. I don't understand it, and I don't want to give you poor quality work. And it's okay to do that. Just once again, be very clear with your communication. Okay? Sometimes you'll be asked to do things beyond just writing that you might not be comfortable with, you might not have experience with, that might be technically above what you're able to do or what you feel you can do. So maybe they want you to add in hyperlinks, maybe they want you to publish the content online on like a WordPress or something like that, and you may not know how to do all that. They may ask you to add in links on the site and HTML tags and things like that that are more than just writing and rewriting content. And that might not be something you feel comfortable with. You may not know how to charge for that. And I've had to figure some of these things out as I go and say, well, I'm going to charge you extra for adding in hyperlinks or for doing excessive research and different things like that. And it's okay maybe sometimes to take on this extra workload, these things that are more technical, as long as you know how to get your money's worth out of them, your time's worth out of them, really. And you know how to charge for them, and to once again be clear and upfront with your client. Make sure they know the kind of workload you're putting in, how difficult it is for you, and that you're committed to giving them high quality content. All right, so you're going to have to establish the fees for these sorts of things, and you're going to have to set some boundaries and say, this is as far as I can go with it. I can only do so much of this. I can't do this. And just be really clear, communicate at all times, and make sure you're not getting in over your head. You want to be careful about saying yes to things that you don't know how to write about, or to things that you don't know how to do. So let's say you don't know how to publish things on WordPress, and you've looked at it, you've tried to do it, and you always end up making some mistakes or just really frustrating yourself with it. Don't take it on. If you get in over your head and you've agreed to take it on, and you feel bad about saying to your client, sorry, I can't do this, then you're going to hurt your reputation. You're going to give poor quality work, and that client may not come back and give you more work. It's better to just say, I'm sorry, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. I don't feel comfortable even trying to charge a higher rate for this because it's going to be shoddy work, and it's not going to be up to my regular level of quality, so you need to find someone else to do this. And your client will usually understand. All right, you're protecting yourself, you're protecting the client at this point. So just be really careful with that. Don't be taken advantage of. Look for the red flags and know when to say no.